Okay, I'm back. It's been a week. This is the second week that these rocks have been in step one. I went ahead outside and I opened them up and rinsed them off and brought them inside. So now we find out what is ready to move on. That one has a pretty big, see if I can get that to focus. It's got a pretty big little hole in it there. So it's going to do another week. I already looked at this one. This one's really nice. I like this one. But it's got two little spots on it I want gone. This is a really interesting rock. I did not know stuff like this was around here. And it didn't look like this when we put it in. So let me see if I can get to focus. Gotta be far enough away. But this one might be ready to move on. I don't feel anything on it. And I have the barrel up here with our stuff ready to go to step two. Okay. I'd say that one's ready. I knew starting out with this kind of rough that it would move pretty quickly, and it has. So we're making progress. They're not all ready, but they're getting there. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and just go through all these, and then when I'm done, we will take a look at what we have in the next step barrel and what we have in the needs another week barrel, and we'll decide whether we're going to go on to the next step or not. Okay, I got them sorted out, and after pulling out the ones, and there were a good many. I'm really not used to pulling that many out. I'm used to, I open up a barrel, I pull out 5 or 6 rocks, and that's about it. If you look, this is what's going to stay in step one, and it's probably hard to see in the camera. It's about half full. Our move on to step two is also about half full. Sitting them right next to each other is a little hard to see it in the camera, but to be honest with you, these two barrels are about the same. Now, I could fill this with ceramic media, and probably we could go to step two this week. I'm fighting the temptation. I'm going to go ahead, fill this up again, because the way things are going, I strongly suspect that we will fill this next week, and then we can move on from there. Okay, now, I hope you don't consider this cheating, but I mentioned when we went to get the rocks that that's where I go fishing. I went fishing, and as I do, I brought home a bunch more rocks. So I still have to fill this one back up so we can do step one for another week. I still have a few. These are rocks from the original batch that we got there, so we'll throw those in. I have a bunch more over there, but they're rocks that have big holes in them and stuff like that aren't going to get done anytime soon. And I may throw them in a batch at some point, but for this one I don't want to spend 7-8 weeks on step one. That's why I chose to use the kind of rock I did. I knew it was stuff that I figured within 3 weeks we could move on to step two. I did want to mention one of the rocks we looked at that first week, it had a pretty big hole in it, and just on a whim I broke it in half. Okay, what I didn't notice when I looked at those holes, okay, this is the rock. Let's see if I can get it to focus. Looks like it is. Okay, those, I think they're called vugs. They have crystals in them. When I broke it in half, you could see there's a line right down through the middle of that rock of probably quartz or something like that. Pretty cool. It's not going to help me to tumble it, but you know, it's pretty cool. It's neat to find. So there you go. Let's fill this one back up. Oh, I also wanted to mention, I got a comment last week. It's the first time anybody has ever said this. From the time I started, I've been telling people to open your barrels, you take your little washer and you jam it in there and you just twist it and you break the seal and it comes right open. And that's the only way I've ever heard to do it, and it's the way I've done it since I started. Well, somebody made the comment that you could actually damage the lid of your barrel that way. Okay, and I'd never thought about that, and at first I thought they're out of their minds. Okay, the 3-pound barrels, they generally pop right off and it's not a big deal. Okay, but then I didn't say that, but when I responded, he responded back and said, he or she, I'm not sure, I don't even remember the name, but he said it's more the 12 and 6 pound barrels. And just to show you, this is my 12 pound barrel lid. It's much bigger, okay? You see it's much bigger, okay? And when he said that, or she said that, whichever, the first thought I had in my mind, there are times when it's much harder to get that barrel lid off than usually these. So my general thing is I'll put it in, I'll twist a little bit, and then if it doesn't pop open, I'll move. And I've done that. And at this point, I don't think my barrel lid is damaged, but I can feel there's rough spots where I've done this before. Okay, and the danger is this is only aluminum. If you bend it, it's not going to seal right. And that's legit. And their suggestion was you get a bicycle tire removal tool, which I've not looked into it, but those are probably relatively cheap. I don't think they're massively expensive, and that is a fantastic idea because it probably would do it much safer on your barrel. Okay, so let's get this one filled back up. I'm trying to pick ones I think have a decent shot or that might look really nice. I also grabbed some I grabbed some random stuff that I've not seen before. Okay, I don't know what this is. I got it at the Ohio River. Okay, and yeah, I don't know. Let's see what it does. Trying to get some different colors in them. Another question you get, and I just saw this on a rock tumbling Facebook page today. Can I skip step one? Okay, let's take a look at this for a second. If you could skip step one, the kind of rocks that we're using are probably the kinds of rocks you could get away with it, because if you look at this one, it's pretty smooth already. Let me see if I can get a better one. Okay, one of the ones I threw in here. Okay, this one. I just threw this one in here. There's almost not a mark on this rock. It looks almost perfectly smooth. Okay, let me dry it off again. And here's the point I want to make. This rock looks good. I don't think it's going to take long in step one. It might take, there is a little hole in it. I was going to say it might take a week. We might get out in a week. But basically, if you look at the rocks that we did step one with, and you compare them to what I just got from the river, it makes a difference. It does, okay? And you can't feel it like I can feel it, but just feeling these rocks, there's a definite difference. If you handed me these two rocks, I could, with my eyes closed, I could tell you which one has done step one and which one hasn't. Okay, so you might get away with doing less time in step one, but I would not skip it completely. My opinion, and I think a lot of rock tumblers' opinions, step one's the most important part. If you get step one, the rest of it goes pretty easily. Okay. So let me see that one. Sometimes it's hard to tell how full you have it with water still in it, so I'm probably going to pour the water off of them and I'll get them set up. Some of these are pretty big. Try some of the smaller ones. You want to have a variety of sizes. And this one, oh, it's got a crack in it. You want to have a variety of sizes so that basically they can rub on each other, and the smaller ones will help with the bigger ones. Alright, we'll throw that one in there. Alright, so that'll be our plan. I'm going to go ahead and shut the camera off. I want to get everything ready to get going. And, I had two other rocks over here. I grabbed two other rocks. Somebody, if you had really sharp eyes and you looked right here, these two rocks. These were not in our batch. They're not rocks I got. They're in a different batch. I did something. I probably should have filmed this. It might have been an interesting video, but I've been kind of caught up in this video. What I did, I have a bad tendency at the end of the year when it starts to get cold in the winter. I live in Ohio. I'll shut down. I'll take whatever's in my tumblers and I'll put them in a tote and I'll put water on them so they stay wet, and I put them on a shelf for the next year. And then what do I always do the next year when I start up? I don't use those rocks. I had, I think, 4 totes of rocks in water that I couldn't tell you how long they've been there. Take a second, I'll show you what I'm talking about. Take the lid off, and this is the batch I was working on when I started this. So I have a whole tote full of rocks that have been in step 1 but aren't done yet. Okay, so what I did is I took all those 4 totes and I went through all of them, and I tried to pick the ones that were closest to being ready, that didn't have any major flaws in them, that I thought they'd be ready pretty quick. And I put those in the barrel and I started tumbling those. Well, these are 2 of the rocks that made the cut. I wanted to show you something. I think these are both petrified wood from Arizona. Okay, the one, I'm going to dry it off because if you see it wet, it's unbelievable. But I want to show you something. Here's the problem. This piece, there's a little hole right there. Let me see if I can get it to focus. Get the light on it. And here's what I think's going on. I don't think it's a crack. What I think is going on with petrified wood, you have all this different color, and let me show it to you wet so you can see the difference. Oh my goodness, this is a beautiful rock. Okay, I hope this comes through well. Okay, and it's got this little part there that it's got like holes, and it's got holes on the other side on that stripe. Petrified wood, different minerals have replaced the wood fibers of the tree that fell down at some point, and that's where you get all that color and the different lines and stuff like that. What I suspect is that mineral is softer than the rest of the rock. So the problem is, what that means is I'm not going to tumble this out. Okay, it's just going to get worse. And this rock, I think, is the same thing. Okay, if you look at the end of it right there, you got the same situation. Okay, yeah, and I can't fix that. So I'm left with the question, okay, do I just throw them into step 2 as they are? And the rest of them, they'll shine. The rest of them will shine up, but those spots will still show. If I had a cabbing machine, I might be able to fix them that way. I'm not sure. I don't have one, and I don't know really how to use them, but I suspect maybe, because you can kind of sand it down without targeting that you know, it would be doing the whole face, not just that piece. Okay, so it might work, but I'm not sure on that one. Okay, so that's the kind of decisions you got. The whole skipping step 1 thing, here's my thought, and I've said this for quite a while. Rock tumbling is a hobby for you if you have patience. If patience is not your virtue, then this is not the hobby for you. But let me tell you what I've always liked about it. Okay, I started these rocks last week, and I haven't touched them for 7 days. Today I've spent about an hour puttering around, looking at rocks, and moving things around and deciding what's going to go next. And then I'm going to start them up again. I won't touch them again for a week. It doesn't require tons of time. It does require tons of time, but not from you. Okay, and I love the results. To me, there's nothing more fun than getting something like this. Okay, I'll move over a little bit. This is a batch I finished a little while ago. Let me get you a little closer to it. Yeah, it's really fun to get a batch of rocks that looks like that. And I'm going to make a guess, and in about four weeks, our batch is going to look like that. Okay, we need probably 1 more week in step 1 to get enough rocks to move to step 2. Then once we move to step 2, at that point, it will be 1 week and done, 1 week and done, 1 week and done. But the step 1, and I mentioned in a previous video, this is like one of the biggest mistakes I made when I first started out. I thought you do 1 week in step 1, you move on. And what that meant was I would get a batch done, and about 5 or 6 of them be shiny, and a lot of the rest of them weren't, because they weren't ready to move on. So then I would move them back to step 1 and start over again with them. And eventually I realized you just need to do more time in step 1. Okay, and if you watch Rob on Michigan Rocks, he'll tell you the same thing. He did a batch, I want to say it might have been, it was some kind of agates, and I want to say he did 18 weeks in step 1. So, like I said, if patience is not your virtue, this is probably not the hobby for you. But if it is, and you like shiny rocks, which, you know, I've had rock collections since the time I was 5 years old, which has been a long time ago. Okay, and I really enjoy making them shiny, and learning about how to do it and getting the equipment. It's been a lot of fun. All right, I'll see you in another week, and we will probably, maybe, be moving on to step 2. I'm back. Well, that was quick, wasn't it? I meant to do something, and I want to add it to the end of this video. Maintenance on your tumblers. Okay, this 3-pound tumbler I've been using for at least 4 years, and it's still going strong, knock on wood. Okay, but what you do is, I'm going to turn it on real quick. You want to oil it. Okay, and what I'm looking at are where the bars go into the machine on both sides. Now, I have like a lubricating oil that I put in a little oil thing. I usually use this, okay, but I don't even remember what kind of oil I put in it. But a lot of people say, and it will work just fine, a good old 3-in-1 oil. Okay, let me see if I can get that to focus. Okay, just a regular 3-in-1 oil, and you don't have to put a lot on. Okay, but you put a little bit on. You definitely try not to get it on the rubber part of your bar there, because you could cause it not to work right. Okay, now I put a little on this one, and then I move it. Okay, and then do this side. Move it again. There you go. Little maintenance on the tumblers. All right, I'll see you next week.